This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so welcome to the first real class of Greek 2. Tonight we're going to be studying the nominative and the accusative cases and also talking about the definite article. So for this class, we are going over the noun system. We're going to touch on the verb system just a little bit, but we're going to go through this slow enough that we're going to have a pretty good handle on the noun system before we get done, before December. Tonight, you are going to have to memorize 12 things. 12 things, and then start memorizing 3 more things. So by next week, you're going to have to memorize 12 particular things, and they're going to have to be committed to heart. So this is about as in-depth of memorizing as we're going to get per week, okay? We're not going to throw a whole lot of new things at once. So, case endings. A case ending is a suffix that tells you what case the word you're talking about is in. Okay? In English, our 2 main types of cases are the subject and the object. Okay? Whenever we look at these particular words that we have in front of us here, you notice that the only difference between this word apostolos and this word apostolon is the ending. Apostolos is apostle whenever it's being used as a subject. Apostolon is apostle whenever it's being used as a direct object. The way that we tell whether something is a subject or a direct object is the ending, not the word order. So the question becomes, what case endings do we use? The sigma ending is going to be used with the nominative, and the nu is going to be used with the accusative. These are with masculine words. Okay, everybody unmute their mics. You ready? Okay, repeat after me. The masculine, nominative,
nominative
ending is a sigma.
Sigma.
The masculine, accusative ending is a nu.
Is a nu.
Okay? You can mute your microphones now. We've memorized a 1/6 of what we have to memorize. Okay. Got that? I don't know about you, Ralphie and Sammy are rocking this out. All right. So there's 3 main terms that we need to go over to understand this. So the first one is a stem. A stem is the part of the word that carries the meaning of the word. Okay? So you can see here, the stem of apostolos is apostola. Okay? You drop out the ending, and that leaves you with the stem. I don't know if anybody's studied this before, but they may have memorized it with the the vowel that goes before the last letter. For the purpose of this class, I want you to just memorize the case endings I give you. There's a reason for it that comes up later whenever we start talking about third declension. But for right now, all you need to know is that the part that is without the case endings is the stem. Okay. All right. So in this particular one, every word can only have one gender. Okay. So even things that aren't necessarily, a good example I used last week was ecclesia. Ecclesia is always feminine, even though it's in English neuter, or I guess it could be feminine depending on who you talk to. The word church, it is always the same. And it points out here you don't need to be looking at natural gender, but you need to identify the patterns. So you have the case, which is based on the ending, so case. You have the gender, which is going to be based on the stem. And then you have number, which is also based on the endings. So you see two words here, apostolos and apostoloi. Okay, apostolos, the sigma ending we said was the ending for what case? Anyone?
Nominative.
Nominative.
Nominative. Okay, apostoloi is the nominative plural. So this is the nominative masculine singular. This is the nominative masculine plural. Okay. The iota is the ending for the nominative masculine plural. Everybody unmute their microphone. The nominative is the ending for the nominative masculine plural. Okay. Now you know a quarter of what I need you to memorize for tonight. All right, you can mute your microphones again. All right. The difference between apostle and apostles is a sigma versus an iota. Okay. There are 3 declensions. As I talked about last week, a declension is just a way that a word changes. It's a pattern, okay? I talked about how most of the time to make something plural in English, you add an S. Sometimes you add an ES. Sometimes you change the middle of it, like the word man to men. Sometimes it looks unrelated to what it had before, like goose versus geese. Sometimes it changes with a different ending other than an S, child to children, but it doesn't have anything to do with the meaning, okay? So, the different patterns, okay, are the first declension, the second declension, and the third declension. We're going to go over the rules in a second, but the main thing that you need to remember is that whenever you see an alpha or an eta in the nominative, so that's kind of the key, in the nominative, in the form that we memorize, the lexical form, think first declension. Okay. If you see an omicron, think second declension. Third declension words will be covered in chapter 10. They're a little bit more complicated than the first two, and that's why we save them for later. They undergo some kind of funny changes to the endings, so they're put off for 4 or 5 chapters, just so that we have a good handle on the idea of the noun system before we start adding some kind of complicated letter changes. The grammar stays the same once we get to the third declension. It's just the way that the words change is different. In addition to this, there's a few words that are considered indeclinable. There are certain words that are always the same no matter what role that they're playing in the sentence. And many times this will be a name of something, or it will be a word that is transliterated from another language. So an example here is Israel. Something happened on the TV and I'm not sure what. Israel is Israel, and it's always Israel. Whether it's nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative, it's always Israel. Okay. I lost connection with my tablet. Sorry, give me 1 second. Because this is where I want to. I don't know if he is or not, since he. Can you guys hear me again?
Yes.
We can.
All right. When my tablet became disconnected, I had to change Wi-Fi networks. Okay, so there's 2 cases we're going to learn tonight. The nominative and the accusative. The nominative is subjective and will be the subject of the sentence in all of our examples and for a while. Okay. The accusative is the direct object and will always be the direct object or the object of preposition whenever it's in that case. As you can see here, nominative ends in sigma and accusative ends in new for masculine words. Okay. And he points out here, just kind of a note of speaker versus translator. I don't know if you've thought about this, but we're kind of working in reverse. So if you were speaking Greek, you would say things you'd be figuring out how to put the word in the tense to convey the idea that it was the subject. In our case, we're kind of working backward, and in a way, it's a little bit easier because by having those endings, we automatically know this is the subject. This is the nominative. Okay? All right. So he puts a little example here. Theos agape ton kosmon. Agape theos ton kosmon. Ton kosmon agape theos. The thing about that he's trying to convey here is all of these mean the same thing. This is God loves the world. And he's put the words in different orders each time. But you can see, I'm going to underline this. Because there's a sigma, this is always nominative. Because there's a new, this is always accusative. Okay? Does that make sense to everyone? And this is the verb for, just so you're aware. Ralphie, Sammy, you get that? Yep. Well, Ralphie and Sammy have it. If you guys don't have it yet, you're just going to have to be left behind by the two of them. I think they're just too smart for all of you. Okay. So a lexicon. A lexicon is a, not that.
I don't know that.
A certain figure thought that I said her name. These are the dictionary forms, okay? The form that we memorize will be the dictionary form, okay? It's the form that you would look up in BDAG or pick your favorite. So the vocabulary form, as it puts here, if it's a noun, it's always the nominative and the singular, okay? So you're going to see this chart here in the minute. It's always going to be the one on the top. That's going to be the form. The form we memorize will be the form that you could look up if you wanted to look it up. We're also going to learn how to work backward, okay? By knowing this and knowing that apostolos is a masculine word, we can work backward to figure out how to parse it and know what the lexical form to look up is. That's the point of this exercise, is to get back to the form that we can look up in the dictionary. That's what parsing has to do with. Okay. All right. We kind of went over that. So this right here is going to be how I want you, whenever we parse something, to go through it. So case, then number, then gender. Okay. You're going to get used to that. It's just the way that we do it. We'll do it the same way every time. First declension have alpha or eta. Second declension have an omicron in the stem. The nominative is the subject and uses nominative case endings. The direct object is accusative and uses accusative case endings. Word order doesn't really matter, and we will be looking up the lexical form. All right. So I don't know how familiar you all are with the Greek language. The old way of learning Greek was based on memorizing paradigms. And let me see. I'm gonna be right back. I want to see if I can turn my camera on so you guys can see this. Is it showing me now?
Yeah, we can see you. Well, not now.
Okay. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to have you memorize. What I'm having you memorize is about 7 rules and about six case endings. That replaces this piece of paper. I don't know if you can see this, but this is about 6-point font and fills up most of the page. You can either memorize this or you can memorize some rules. Is there anybody who would rather memorize this? All right, I'll send him a copy. Here it is. What's your guys' verdict?
I am pretty good memorizing, but
Sammy says he could do it if he wanted to do it. He just doesn't want to do it. All right. So the one thing I will tell you is the paradigms that we memorize are very important. And usually the reason we memorize the paradigms that we memorize is there's no good way to memorize them. I mean, there's no way to reduce them. You can't derive some of the ones we have you memorize because they don't follow a normal pattern. All right, so here's what you need to memorize. You ready? Sigma, nu, iota, upsilon, sigma. Sigma, nu, iota, upsilon, sigma. If you want to memorize it with the endings, because sometimes it's easier, os, on, oi, us. There's some that go in between, but for right now, we just need to memorize those 4 for second declension, masculine. Second declension, masculine. Os, on, oi, us. For first declension feminine, the nominative singular ending is actually nothing. Okay, it's just the stem. So it's nothing, nu, iota, sigma. Nothing, nu, iota, sigma. For the second declension neuter, it's nu, nu, alpha, alpha. nu, alpha, alpha. All right. Now, I want to help you cheat a little bit. Yes. So an eta or an alpha, both of those in the nominative singular do not have a case ending. It's just the stem. And I'll show you that in a minute. And they both have, in the accusative singular, they both have nu. So look at this. For the accusative singular, the case ending is nu for all of them. Okay, so we've reduced it from memorizing 12 things to memorizing 10 things then, something like that. You'll notice that the neuter, the nominative and the accusative in the singular, and the nominative and accusative in the plural are the same. Okay? These are two of the rules that we will talk about in those rules that I said you had to memorize. One of the rules is in the nominative and the accusative, whether singular or plural, the neuter will always have the same ending. Okay? So this chart is the one thing that you have to memorize, okay? You have to memorize, or the stuff that we're going to do later won't make any sense. I encourage you to memorize it two ways. So vertically, os, on, oi, us, a, ain, I, as, on, ah. But also horizontally, sigma, nothing, on, oi, I, ah, us, as, ah. The reason I say do it vertically and horizontally is because you're going to notice some patterns whenever we start adding other things. And if you know them both ways, it'll be easier, especially when we add the third declension. So first, I recommend learn it vertically. So if you want to say a, or if you want to, because it doesn't have a case ending, a, ain, I, as, if that's easy to remember. The big thing is just a way that it will stick in your mind. So what this chart means, if you see a word that has an ending, you can use this chart to derive and parse it. So if you see a word that ends in, let's not start with that one. Let's go to this one first. All right, by seeing this word, let's use a different color. All right, if a word ends in alpha iota, you know that it is nominative plural and it's feminine. So what did I say? You need to know case, you need to know number, you need to know gender. So if something has this alpha iota ending, you know that it is nominative, plural, feminine. Okay, case, number, gender. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So I recommend for, I'm going to give you the parsing exercises. I'm going to email them out probably tomorrow morning. Whenever you do the parsing exercises to begin with, I would honestly just have your copy of this next to it and just match up the case endings with the endings that you find on the parsing exercises. We're going to do a few here in a minute, but that's the simplest way, is to just learn how this works. And then once you have it memorized, you won't have to refer back to it. But there's something about, at least for me, doing the exercises and kind of checking it with this that helped me memorize the different endings. So if we take those endings, we can add the words to them, and then we have a paradigm. So this isn't the complete paradigm. There's actually, each paradigm has 8 in it. We're leaving out 2 cases right now. But if you go through this, logos, logon, logoi, logus. So this is the word subject, the word object, the words subject, the words object, and these are both direct objects. Graphe, subject, that's writing. Graphane, writings in the object. Graphi, and I'll come back to that one, but the writings, subject. Graphos, writings, object. You will notice, even if it has an eta ending, it still has an alpha in the nominative plural. That's an important thing to remember.
Why is the alpha red?
To say that it changed from an eta to an alpha. You see that? The question was, why is the alpha in red? It's to show that that eta changed to an alpha in the nominative plural. Okay? So just the simple way for me to remember this is there are no etas in the paradigm of the plural. Okay, the etas are only in the paradigm for the singular. Good? Good, okay. All right. Next is hora, which is our. Horon, which is our, objective. Horai, which is ours, subject. Horos, which is ours, object. Okay. Once again, you notice that there is no case ending for graphe or for hora. Both of those have just the stem. Okay. And that's going to be true of first declension words in general. Last, we have ergon, ergon, erga, erga. So work, subject, work, plural. Works, subject, works, plural. Anybody see a problem with that?
Because they're the same, how do you tell the difference? Because they're the same in the nominative and accusative.
Correct. So, do you have any idea how we would tell them apart?
Jake said context, also the direct the article.
Yeah, so those are the 2 things. So the context should let you know. The article sometimes will give you a hint also. However, whenever we're just parsing, and if you parse a neuter, accusative or nominative, that's neuter. You actually say nominative / accusative. That's what you write down. Okay, because it can be either. Whenever a word is taken out of its context, you can't really tell. So these particular words are the same. So you have to put, it could be either. Make sense? There's a handful of times that this actually is exegetically important. Usually you can figure it out, but there's at least a couple times in James where the translators kind of go one way or the other because it is a little ambiguous. The meaning of the actual sentence ends up meaning more or less the same, but it determines whether, I think it's in chapter 3, it's whether the spirit is the object or the spirit is the subject. So it's either what the action was done to or the means by which the action was done. Anyway, it's an interesting discussion. All right. So this is how this works. Okay. Now, does everyone have, going back, does everyone have this written down?
Yeah.
Yes, everyone have it written down?
Yep.
Woodbury, you guys all have this written down?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. All right, so Dad, come to the microphone. Jerry.
All right.
We need your participation. All right, so we see here our word is logos. What is the ending? Well, let's start off with this. Can you tell what the stem of logos is?
Now go.
Logos, word.
So that's going to be down here. That's lexical form. Okay. Can you tell what the
Okay.
stem is?
Logo.
Loga or whatever you want to say. Okay. So that's the stem. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So our ending is what?
It'd be a sigma.
Up here, the one that's already written down. It's not just sigma, this one.
It's a noon sigma.
It's an upsilon.
Upsilon. Okay.
Upsilon and sigma. Now, you got your paper there?
I had a picture of it I had took with my phone.
Okay. So pull up the picture and go to the chart and tell me where the upsilon sigma falls. I think I said it.
Okay. The
I go back.
accusative plural.
Okay. So our case is going to be accusative. Okay?
Right.
Our number is going to be plural. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, logos, what type of endings does it use?
Well, here it's going to say that it's a plural ending, but
So
it's going
this
to
part
be,
of it.
I mean, a feminine.
Or the very end of it's nice.
Look at the top.
But okay. Well, I was going off of the one. Okay. It's
So it's
showing
second
a
declension. Right. So it's masculine from logos. Okay. Now the inflected meaning is the meaning that it is in that particular case. So logos is word. What would logos be?
that would be a feminine form of word.
Not feminine.
Okay, the accusative form of word? The
Not
plural
just,
form?
right, so what is the plural of word?
Words. Yeah.
Words. So that's how that works. So logos would be the plural masculine from logos, meaning words. My pen drug. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I don't know why they put this one on there because you can't really do this one. So this is undeclinable. I don't know why I put that on. All right. So these are the three words. Okay. The three rules, sorry. So if you're going to take another picture, this would be one to take a picture of. Stems ending in alpha or eta are in the first declension. Stems ending in omicron are in the second, and consonantal stems are in the third. So hora and graphe are first. Logos is second. Ergon is also second. Okay, because it's not the ending, it is the ending of the stem. The stem ends in an omicron for both of those. No. Sammy and Ralphie are still writing it down. We'll give them a second. The rule is the important part. The examples aren't quite as important. Does everyone understand rule 1?
Yeah. All right. Rule 2. Rule 2. Every neuter word has the same form in the nominative and the accusative. This is what I was showing you earlier. Every neuter word, and just kind of that's first declension, second declension and third declension. So second declension and third declension, if it is neuter, they have the same nominative and accusative. There are a handful of first declension neuter words, but I don't think we learned them. I actually don't think I learned them until Greek 4, to be honest with you. There's only like 2 or 3. And they're not used very often. So my rule is if it's used less than 10 times in the New Testament, I look it up. I don't use my brain power to memorize anything used less than 10 times. Okay. Rule 3. Almost all neuter words end in alpha in the nominative, let me rephrase. Almost all neuter words end in alpha in the nominative and accusative plural. Okay. Very, very few exceptions to that. So this is kind of foreshadowing. In the third declension, the endings are also alpha for the accusative and the nominative for neuter words. Almost all neuter words end in alpha, in the nominative, and accusative plural. So those are the first 3 noun rules. There's a few more that we're going to learn along the way. But those are the ones that cover the nominative and the accusative. Okay, the rest of them cover different things. All right. So this is the paradigm that we saw earlier. If it's easier to memorize it with words, you can take a picture of this and come back to it. I'm going to send out the PowerPoint so you guys can look at them. They are all, I think these are publicly available to anybody with a free account on billmounts.com. Is everyone there using PowerPoint, or some of you using Keynote? Or would it be easier for me just to print it to a PDF and send it out that way?
PDF.
Okay, that's what I'll do. Yeah, I'll give you a copy. All right, so kind of last thing. The definite article means the. There is no indefinite article. I talked about this before. If anybody's making an argument based on the word a, you need to immediately dismiss them and assume that they don't know anything. So there you go. If anybody makes a biblical argument based on an a or an and, just assume that they don't know what they're talking about, turn around and leave. Okay? The article is your friend. The reason the article is your friend is when you can't figure out how to parse something because it looks weird, the article is consistent. And there is this wonderful song that I have somewhere that's to the tune of Three Blind Mice that teaches you how to sing the definite article. And that will be part of your final exam, is you singing that song to me. Okay, not really, but I wish it was. So this is the paradigm. Ha he ta, ton ten ton, oi I ta tus tas ta. You notice that these are fairly similar, though not exactly the same as the endings. Can you see that? Yes, yes. So you can see here, the new stays here, but it's not present here. Okay. There's no new here either. The A still doesn't have an ending, and we lost our sigma here. Oi, I, ta, and tus, tas, ta, similar, a little bit different. Okay. So first I would memorize the noun paradigm that we went over. Second, I would memorize the noun rules. If you got time to memorize a third thing, it would be these words. Okay. So kind of the trick here did you guys need to see that? I'll give you a printout of it. Okay. All right, so it's kind of the trick here. Ha theos sose psukas. All right. So if you want to be super literal, this would be the God saves souls. Okay. Generally, not always, but generally, if you see the ha, put the if it's present. If it's absent, you can put a. That is more to make it make sense and less having to do it, less having to do with the word actually being there. You will notice that things like God still have the article. So in addition to names like that, even regular names do, like the Jesus or the Matthew or the John. It's just something that they would do. I think Dr. Cloud talked about how that in Hebrew there's a similar phenomenon where they would joke and they would call him by the cloud. Same idea here is you have it present even in things where in English you wouldn't normally have it. Now, generally, you don't translate that. It's got here the post-positive. Whenever you say hade, it usually means but. That's really more than you need to know right now. Okay. So, God saves souls. Victoria?
Yes.
Would you like to parse Sukkos for me?
That is accusative. Plural, feminine. From decay, meaning souls. Here.
Correct.
Is that the right order?
Yep. So case, number, gender. I told you guys, when the people who did the accelerated course, I think he did case, gender, number, right? Does that sound right?
Yeah, it was backward, I think, from this.
Yeah, I've never heard of anybody doing it in that order. The case number gender thing has been every single book I've seen besides that one. I don't know if he did that just to be different or what. Okay. Good job. All right. So the next thing that Bill Mounts talks about is the fog. He has this little cartoon here. He points out that you are now entering the fog. Learning a language that you're not familiar with is hard. And what he wants people to know is that if you are having problems, it's not you. It's just the material. And he recommends that if you're having trouble with something, keep moving on. In 2 or 3 chapters, a lot of times you'll be able to look back and say, oh, I had trouble with that at the time, but I get it now. Now, he also points out that if you're so deep in the fog that you can't turn back 2 or 3 chapters, then it's usually time to get a little bit of help. I try to check the ISB email daily. I try to, because I want people to learn this and I want to answer people's questions. Right now, the big thing is understanding the relationship of the nominative to the English subjective and the accusative to the English direct object. The rest of it is basically just memorizing. Memorize those paradigms that I threw up there. If you can do those things, you will have absolutely no problem with this. It may take you a couple weeks to memorize it. That's okay. It's just that you have to know those things kind of as a minimal to keep going. But everything that we do will review the things we've already done. All of the things that we do as far as workbook stuff, we'll come back and review things. So if you don't understand it 100%, say you only understand it 75%, most of the time that's going to be good enough. And also, since we're going to have some time between what we've done tonight and the quizzes to review it 2 or 3 times, you should have a good handle on it before I give you the quiz. Okay. And the other thing is that this class, for all intents and purposes, is pass-fail. It's either you got enough in a 70 or you didn't. So whether you get a 95 or a 75, for the purposes of this class, it's the same. Okay. All right. So cases show function. We need to be able to parse things with case, number, and gender. We need to understand the stem is what determines which declension something is in. The subject of the sentence is in the nominative. The direct object is in the accusative. We need to have this paradigm down cold. Like I said, if there's only one thing that you take away from this, it's memorizing these. I guess you could count these as separate things, but really this is the same thing. So these 12 endings are really the most important thing from this lesson. If you're going to memorize one other thing, it'd be the rules. If you're going to memorize 2 other things, the definite article. And you can see here the relationship. You've got very similar. You drop the sigma, you add a ta in front of these. So that would be the next thing I memorize. You know, the first 3 rules, we went over those. And then the normal Greek word order is, I don't know if we talked about this, the word order doesn't really matter. The normal order, for anybody that's curious, this isn't all that important. It's usually verb, nominative, accusative. So usually the verb is the first thing. If it's anything different than that, there's some people that say if it breaks this order, it's for emphasis. Well, I'll tell you, almost half of the sentences in the Greek New Testament break this rule. So I have trouble believing that it's for emphasis if it happens almost half the time. Because you could just as easily say, well, whenever it's in the normal word order, that's for emphasis because it happens half the time too. Translation procedure, he kind of pointed out, I don't know if you saw those little slash marks, he divides the sentence up. I'm going to pull up the homework here in a second. I want to show you kind of how to do that. All right, so here's the vocabulary for this particular section. Most of these words we're going to already have learned, but this is a review. The reason you need to know these words is because they're the ones that are in the word book. So agape means love. Allos is other or another. Autos, he, she, or it. Basileia. Basileia means kingdom. I don't know if we learned that one or not. De means but or and. En means in, or sometimes into or among. And we haven't gotten there yet, but it's a preposition. Ergon means work or deed. Ergon means work or deed. Kairos. Kairos means day, or sorry, season. Can mean day, but usually it means season or time. Noon means now. Noon means now. Ha, hey, ta. That's the definite article, and they all mean the. Hati means that or because. Ooh, and sometimes it will be, oh, there we go. Have to wait for the thing to catch up with me. Ooh, ook, or ooks, depending on the letters that follow, means not. Hora means hour. Hour is in that type of hour with an H. Okay, so combined with the previous section, those 39 words make up 37% of the vocabulary of the Greek New Testament. I think I've got a list of these all somewhere. I will tell you, actually, I'm just going to show you guys in a second Bill Mounce's website, because that's really where I want you to. Oh, for learning vocabulary, I personally think this is the best way to do it. So let me. Can everyone see that? It's not very big. Let's try this. Oop, too much. Okay. All right. So if you come to this website, this is billmounce.com, and you go to New Testament Greek 1, go to lesson chapter number 6, scroll down to where I'm at here on the chapter material. Oh, this is getting slow. Okay. You scroll down to Flashworks. Perspective. I apologize. For some reason, there's a bit of a lag. Let's try this. Okay, now it's showing it. So Flashworks, it has 3 stages. So it goes through, it starts off by having you go from Greek to English. Once you get through the Greek to English part, it takes you through and has you do English to Greek. And then afterward, let's see if it'll do this for me. Once you get all that done, the third stage that's not working. The third stage is it plays the word for you, and you're supposed to figure out what the word is based on just listening to it. For some reason, my audio wasn't coming through. Okay. So that's the vocabulary part. And it also has flashcards. There's flashwords, is what it's called. And it goes through all of Okay, so this is the PowerPoint version of the workbook. I'm going to send this out too. So you're going to have these to parse. I'll tell you which numbers to do, or probably I'll just delete the ones I don't want you to do. That's probably going to be easier. So you can see here, like anthropon, we know that anthropos is the lexical form. So anthropon would be accusative, masculine, singular, from anthropos, meaning man. Okay, so that's how the exercises are going to go for the parsing. All of these are that way. All right, so he kind of does it on here. The first thing I will let you know is he will translate the verbs for the first, I think it's 12 chapters. He will do the translation of the verbs for you because we haven't learned those yet. So you can see here, he translates blepo for you, which is I see. And he divides it up kind of like this. So his recommendation is to translate the verb as one thing, this particle new as one thing, the ton iesun as one thing, kai as its own thing, and then tous apostolus as one thing. Okay, and this is one of the warm-ups. This is warm-up delta. I'll go ahead and do this one for you. So this is I see, noon is now, ton iesun is Jesus, kai is and, tous apostolus is apostles.
So now I see Jesus and the apostles. Okay. For the translation, you don't have to do the parsing for the homework part of it, but there are going to be a few things that we're going to parse for practice as we're going through the exercises. Okay. So that's what the homework is going to be basically the whole semester, is going through these, translating and parsing some, especially if they're a little bit weird. We'll try to parse those to make sure everybody gets those. Any questions on that? I'll make a copy for anybody who wants the homework in a printed form for to take to church tomorrow night. For those of you in Woodbury, I'll probably put together a PowerPoint that has the material I want you to do on it. And I'll send it to you as PowerPoint slides. And you should be able to change it so it's the 6-slide view and print it off that way.